And if you would draw a line after the 6th stanza. Now, this isn't rocket science. Without even reading the poem, how did I know to draw little lines there?
Shift words?
There are some shift words. Yep, yet, or what else then? Look at the ends of the stanzas where we're drawing the lines. That's where we got the periods and the question marks and the semicolons. When I'm trying to teach somebody to dance with a poem, and it took me, I was well into my teaching career before I figured out that most poems are written as sentences. And we've played around a little bit with that with Frank, but if you just tell them you're just reading it as sentences, that's going to make your life and their life a lot easier. So with that in mind, knowing that we're looking at it in these sentences, I need to have 4 people volunteer to read these 4 chunks of the text that we have. Okay, first chunk, second chunk, third chunk, fourth chunk, perfect, go.
Church going. Once I am sure there's nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. Another church.
Stop. I wouldn't normally stop students on a first read through on a poem. Maybe this is the second time through. But at this one, if we're camping out on comprehension, one of the things that I want them to pay attention to is a very simple distinction about poems that Tom Lederer, who's teaching just a couple doors down, told me last year. It's a gross oversimplification, but most poems you can divide into one of 2 categories. It's a lyric, or it's a narrative. Right? It's expressing emotion with a song-like quality, or it's telling us a story. I'm sure nothing's going on. I step inside. Do we have a narrative or a lyric? Narrative, great. So when you think about dramatic situation, I know we've talked about that a lot. In narrative poems, a lot of times the dramatic situation comes in the first couple of lines. Where are we?
In a church.
In a church, absolutely. So we know that we've got this person and he's going to be in a church. Now our title, right? Title, translate, technique, tone, theme. Okay, title, church going. What does it mean that you are church going? What's that?
You're regular.
Yeah, that you're a regular attender of a church. What else might it mean, church going?
Religious.
Something about religion. Good, what else?
You're devout, you're pious to your rules, probably.
Great. Discipline. What else might it mean if the church is going?
It's outdated.
It's outdated. What did you say?
The act of like going.
Absolutely. That it itself is going. And at this time, poem was written in 1954 in England. A lot of small villages have these churches. People like to just come and look at them. All right, let's keep reading the poem.
Another church. Matting, seats, and stone, and little books. Sprawlings of flowers cut for Sunday, brownish now. Some brass and stuff up at the holy end, the small, neat organ, and a tense, musty, unignorable silence, brewed God knows how long. Hatless, I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence, move forward, run my hand around the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new, cleaned or restored. Someone would know, I don't. Mounting the lectern, I peruse a few hectoring large-scale verses and pronounce, "Here endeth," much more loudly than I've meant. The echoes snigger briefly. Back at the door, I sign the book, donate an Irish sixpence, reflect the place was not worth stopping for.
Yet stop I did. In fact, I often do, and always end much at a loss like this, wondering what to look for. Wondering, too, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into, if we shall keep a few cathedrals chronically on show, the parchment, plate, and picks in locked cases, and let the rest rent free to rain and sheep. Shall we avoid them as unlucky places?
Or, after dark, will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, pick symbols for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one? Power of some sort or other will go on in games and riddles seemingly at random, but superstition, like belief, must die, and what remains when disbelief has gone? Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttress, sky, a shape less recognizable each week, a purpose more obscure. I wonder who will be the last, the very last, to seek this place for what it was. One of the crew that tap and jot and know what rude lofts were? Some ruin bibber, brandy for antique, or Christmas addict, counting on a whiff of gown and bands and organ pipes and myrrh? Or will he be my representative, bored, uninformed, knowing the ghostly silt dispersed, yet tending to this cross of ground through suburb scrub because it held unspilt so long and equably what since is found only in separation, marriage and birth and death and thoughts of these, for whom was built this special shell. For, though I have no idea what this accoutred frosty barn is worth, it pleases me to stand in silence here.
A serious house on serious earth it is.
Well, there's the concept of church going, with people in church. We think of church as being popular. We don't think of what it looks like when we're up there. And he's walking into this empty, void space that there's nothing on it. What we think
necessarily by vertical.
He's judgmental, but
I like the contrast between
like a camera.
Let's bring it back. Can I hear from just a couple of people? And let's not worry about the details for a minute, because I know we've talked a little bit about that before. Let's key in on contrast between what and what, or opposites or oppositions. Just somebody raise your hand and tell me something. Yeah, go for it.
We were talking about how the beginning he seems kind of really lighthearted and he's talking about the echoes sniggering at him, and then as you go on it seems to get more and more serious, and he's like the first line of the last stanza, a serious house on serious earth it is.
Yes, yes. And I think the more we can connect something early in the poem to something later, possibly seeing that progression, does the poem and does any essay writing and does the students good service. So that's outstanding. Good. Give me another idea. Yeah.
I was kind of finding humor almost in the kind of opposition of the way that he's dressed and where he is. So, you know, you think of churches as being like this reverent, like you wear your Sunday best.
Right.
And it describes him as hatless and then with cycle clips. So he's wearing like a biking outfit. And I'm picturing him in spandex and all sweaty, you know, in this like reverent place.
Yes. Which like the movement from the comedy to the more serious, we're starting to dance around this idea of meaning here. Because out of that contrast, we start to think, okay, what is the ultimate point going on here? Let's hear just from one more person before we wrap up. Yeah, you can go for it.
The only mention of God is in the first stanza, and it's not a reverent type of mention. It's a more colloquialism. God knows how long this, it's been silent for, and that's the only mention of God.
Yes.
And then every other detail is, besides the Christmas addict, which also is quite humorous, is secular, right?
And as a basic principle of telling students to look at details, so often the detail that we want them to look for is the detail that's left out. And so we've got something about church going, doesn't seem to have much to do with God and has a pretty different perspective on it. So we start with comprehension, then we go to craft. And again, I think the easiest craft starting place is just the details and the contrast. And then we can start to move them to some of the deeper ideas, and I think that makes it accessible for all students. So, thank you guys for letting me present that. You bet.